Welcome, Risers. It's that time once again for the Agent Rise podcast. I'm your co-host, Neil Mathweg, joined by Mindi, Kessenich, and today we're reviewing 2023, a year of amazing things and a year of not so amazing things. Depends on if the glass is half full or half empty.
Like, we're going to talk about the wins, and we're going to reframe the hardships.
That's a great way to say it. I'm like, How do we even say this? Because it goes both ways. I think this year was a challenging year, nonetheless, for almost everybody. It was definitely a year of transition and change, and a year of what was some normal of a market kind of got turned upside down a little bit and changed for some of us. And I think through that challenges, a lot of us got stronger and better as agents. So how do you see the 2023 year market? And then from there, I want to get into the good stuff, because we had a lot of really good stuff this year.
Yeah. So I think, it's hard. As real estate agents, I think that, our business is our life and our life is our business, right? I mean, it's so intertwined. And so when we have a hard personal life, it very much affects our business and vice versa, right? Real estate agents can have a 6-figure swing in their income year to year, depending on the market, very easily. So, but I agree with you that I have heard so many people, not just in our industry, but across the board, talk about how it was a hard year. And I don't know if some of it is just post COVID, like we're almost so far out of COVID now that I know that a lot of corporations, they're talking about how 2024 is going to be the year that everybody goes back to the office. And so that's hard for people. I know that there's been a lot of friends of mine that have been all of a sudden called back into the office, and that's kind of a disruption in their current life. And how are they dealing with that? And then inflation is a real thing. The interest rates obviously have changed. And so there's just been so many, I think, personal and business shifts that we've had to all take on this year. It's been probably more piled on this year in all areas of life than any year that I can certainly remember personally. So definitely. Yeah, I guess where do we start?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like thinking about the challenges of this year and like where we're at in this market, it is definitely as much of a drag, or maybe even more of a drag than it was during the recession. I mean, there was I think in this market, we're seeing that there's still buyers want to buy, and that's a good thing, because in the recession, that wasn't the case. But there was so many sellers that wanted to sell that it just became hard to put deals together. It was so competitive and prices were just falling. So it was so hard to put deals together. Where it's flipped now, right? It's totally flipped. It's not those same scenarios, but it's still is just as difficult to put deals together. And so the challenges are loud. And I think we don't even need to talk more about the challenges, because we know those. Now, I want to switch gears and talk about the opportunities, because there has been a lot of really awesome things. The first one that comes to mind is the development of AI, and now we have ChatGPT, and just what that has done for us, as far as content creating, as far as email reply, as far as templates and lead magnets, and I'm to the point where I feel like I've replaced my VA. Like, I feel like there's so many things that I can have AI do for me now that it seems like it's made my business a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have really, you took it and ran with it. I think there's a lot of people out there that are still sort of dabbling in it, and you're at more of like the advanced class now, which is exciting. And we're going to actually talk about that in some upcoming episodes, where we're going to kind of talk about like where to start, and if you've already started, kind of where you can take it to the next level. Because you show me some stuff sometimes that I'm just like, I feel like I'm like an 85-year-old, like, oh, what is an emoji? Like, that's how I feel with AI a little bit. Like, I've definitely implemented it into my business, but not to the degree that you have. So I'm excited for that episode too, where we can kind of talk about some more ways that you can use it. And I think, that's the beauty of the challenge, right? Is like, when there are challenging years, it pushes us and it makes us grow, and it forces us to look at the opportunities, which is why I had a really hard year, but I look back at it and I'm so grateful for it, because now I can look back at like all the ways that my business is different and my personal life is different because of all of that. And so we were able at Agent Rise, for sure, we never slowed down with looking at the opportunities. And AI is
Right.
just one of several that we started really focusing on and paying attention to. And like you had said to me earlier today, that this last year you saw so many agents get excited again. And this was
Yeah.
in the middle of the hardest year that we've seen, right? And so talk about like what else. Like we've got AI and we're going to dive deeper into that. So
Yes.
stay
Yes.
tuned for that episode. But what other opportunities have you been coaching all
Yeah.
year for all these agents?
Yeah. Well, I saw there was this season where we saw the squeeze come, where the conversion rates and the leads and everything got really really tight. And then we saw a season where agents just kind of felt lost. Like what should I do
Mm-hmm.
next? And when we start talking about the must move markets, we talk about seniors, we talk about investors, and we talk about relocation. And with that, the senior niche became such an awesome fit for some agents that otherwise were floundering, and that really couldn't really find what they wanted to focus on. Like, they didn't want to do online leads. They weren't necessarily in love with open houses, because there really just wasn't a lot of open houses to do. They weren't in love with social media or starting a YouTube channel. They just were just kind of coasting and didn't really have anything that they were passionate about. Well, then when you get talking about serving the seniors, I saw so many agents step up this year, and just like it was like aha moments for them. It was like, oh, this is why I'm in this business. Oh, this is what I could
Yeah.
focus on. And there just became this excitement and this passion. Now, working with seniors is a long game, so the results aren't shown yet. But I know of a handful of agents that have just dedicated all of their being to focusing on serving seniors. They have networked and they have built their top 25 referral partners around the senior industry. So they're serving with excellence. They're helping people that truly need help in the time that they need help. And they have a network of people, that like an army of people that can serve and help them. And so they're passionate, they're excited. And if it wasn't for the market slowing down or getting challenging, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they would have slowed down enough to be able to see this niche and to be able to dedicate all of their business towards it. And I just can't wait for a couple more years. Like, Agent Rise Breakthrough Week is just going to be full of these stories, because they're all making these, forming these relationships and building on these relationships and networking and connecting. And I just can't wait for the referrals to start coming, and because they're going to be able to serve with excellence. So they're going to be so easy to refer to. And again, this would not have happened if the market was roaring and, if things didn't get challenging.
Right. I mean, you don't fix what's not broken, right? And so if
Right.
if real estate was still going status quo, why would people feel the need to look into these other avenues? And this is like a gift that we'll keep giving as long as people are, sticking with it and sorting through it and kind of figuring out their voice in it. And I think that's been another benefit of this year is like you got to like, we don't necessarily know all the things and all the ways to make the senior living niche successful. We know some of them, but it's like with that, just like anything else, if you don't start, you don't kind of fail forward. And so this year, for the agents that were early subscribers to this idea, they're like finding their groove already and seeing some incredible benefits from their, fruits of their labor. And so, and again, like this reframe of like, yeah, the year sucked, which if you didn't give up, if you didn't stop, if you didn't throw in your hat and say, well, it's going to be too hard, there's not enough business or whatever your excuse may be, these are those fruits of the labor that you're going to see. And we talk about senior living a lot in Agent Rise. That's one of the major benefits, is that just we find these opportunities ahead of the game. And I know that before we even started talking about it at Agent Rise, Agent Risers were already starting to
Okay.
implement it, right? And
Yes.
so I know I'm already seeing people on my team having success with it. And we recently had a meeting with a senior care group that the ideas that they had, it just like unlocked us with like things that we hadn't even thought of. And so, and that's the beauty, like I said, of like going through the hard stuff is like people were kind of, some people were desperate, like, well, what am I going to do? And they're like, okay, I'll try this senior living thing. And then as they kind of failed forward, they nestled in, they found their place within that business. Cause just like anything else, there's a million different ways to do senior living as a pillar. And so that, I think I agree, that's been a really, really huge benefit and a good thing that came out of this challenging year. But that's not the only thing, right? There's more than just
Right.
AI
Right.
and senior living.
I think the next one that I'm thinking about is open houses. I'm a big fan of open houses, man. Open houses built my business, right? And during the pandemic, open houses just got shut down to nothing, right? You couldn't even do them in some cities. And then when they did come back, they were so limited because the listings were so
Mm-hmm.
limited. So open houses have just been a grind. And this is the first year since 2020 that I've actually heard of agents and seen agents succeed at open houses. Days on the market are a little bit longer, and so that gives us more opportunities to do more open houses, and people are starting to come out to open houses again. So there's actually there's opportunities there, and so again, this is one of the, it's challenging with the with the amount of houses that are available, right? The number of listings, it's really challenging. But if you can get a good open house, it's amazing the results that can come from them.
Yeah, and this is one of the benefits of the interest rates spiking, because
Mhm.
the interest rates and the inflation spiking, it slowed everything down. But
Mhm.
with that, what we're talking about today is the opportunities that came out of that slowdown. And open houses is a direct reflection from the interest rates, like all of a sudden shooting up, where everyone else was like, this is terrible. Like all my buyers, my whole pipeline went cold, went dark, whatever. But to your point, like open houses were not successful for a period of time.
Right.
And partly because like it was like, well, we don't need to do an open house because by the time we put it on the market, it's going to have offers on it. I mean, if not already being sold because it got a sight unseen offer. And so the interest rates rising, slowing buyers down, making them lukewarm at best, which is a challenge, but it then opens the door back up for open houses. And again, there's agents on my team who that's how they're building their business. Like 100% is around open houses. And so for a while there, we were kind of coaching like, well, we're going to maybe have to add another chase pillar in. And now it's like back to no, there's plenty of open houses to find, which is a direct reflection of those interest rates rising. So they weren't all bad from a business standpoint.
Yes.
And there's also so much language and dialogue, like even, the whole NAR thing and the interest rates rising. Like there are really amazing positive conversations that we can still be having with buyers. And it can be still a really good opportunity because if a buyer can get terms that they want right now, which they can, absolutely, they can get an accepted offer at a price that they're comfortable with and terms that are good for them. And if they can do that right now with a house that they can afford, they're only going to be in an even better situation when the interest rates drop and they can refinance. So there are still so many good opportunities to have conversations that are beneficial to buyers right now. It's
That's it.
just
And
like
this is
it's just a reframe.
right. And this isn't, you couldn't have that conversation last year, right? Like,
No.
I mean, it was like, you got to decide now. And if you don't buy, and like,
Yeah.
and like no
Well, and
negotiating.
if you're not willing to buy a house without an inspection contingency, you're not willing to buy a house right now. You're going to, I mean, it
Mhm.
literally got to the point where I had to have that conversation with buyers because I'm
Right.
like, I cannot get you an accepted offer right now with an inspection contingency and a
Right.
financing contingency. So if you need financing, you can't have an inspection. I mean, it sounds terrible. I don't feel good
Yeah.
saying that. I don't feel like
But
I'm
that's
doing
where it
my,
was at.
but that's where it was at. That was the reality
Yeah.
of the market where now it's like I'm training some agents for the first time in 2 or 3 years how to negotiate an inspection, which is a
Yeah.
benefit. That is a good thing for
Mhm.
buyers. But guess what? It's also a good thing for us because that is one of the absolute advantages that we have as real estate agents over the buyer out there that says, I'm just going to go direct to the seller. Well,
Yes.
how do you know how to negotiate? Do you know how to negotiate an inspection? Do you even know what what defects are important and what are not, because a lot of buyers are like, well, I'm not worried about that. And we would come in and say, well, you should be, so
Right.
it's also good for us that inspections are back, because it gives us an opportunity to really serve our clients.
Yes, yes. And I see that too. Like the days on the market can get frustrating. And we've had a lot of members within the last few months calling me like, I can't sell this house, help. And I've roasted more listings than I've roasted ever before, because there's challenges in getting these houses sold. Now, in those challenges, there's always opportunities though, because
Yeah.
all the people that you meet along the way, because that listing is still out there, all of those, that's all opportunity, right? So that little bit of a slowdown in the market is actually a good thing for you. And it shows your value as a real estate agent. And if
Yeah.
you missed that episode, we'll tag it right up here with I did an episode, a solo episode I don't know, probably about a month ago, on how to sell a house that isn't selling. And we've got a step-by-step guide for that to help with that. So if you missed that episode, we'll link it up here on the top. And again, this is the stuff, again, that like this slows you down, right? And this is the it's the change, but again, there's opportunity in that change.
Yeah. And this is, from a personal standpoint as well. Like so many of the challenges that we go through, personal and business, but you can reframe them all. And I look back at this year on some of the quote unquote challenges, like the things that I would say that was awful and that was such a challenge. And now where I look at where we are 12 months later, and I'm like, wow, that was such a blessing. That was such a benefit. And, one of the things is with our team, with the team that we have in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, in the beginning of the year, I think we had 12 agents on the team. And, starting January 1st of last year. And by, I don't know, end of spring, summer, I would say we had half of that. Like we lost half of our team, which sounds like such a bad thing and such a loss. And now 12 months later, I have so much more clarity around our team, our structure, who I want to be, who I am as a leader, and who I'm not as a leader. And I needed to go through that challenge to really figure that out. And now it's like we're actually rebuilding again, which, 6 months ago I was like, nope, we're not accepting new agents. Like, nope, like that didn't go well, whatever. And now I'm already, making that swing back around to like, well, as long as I do it in a way that feels right, that, like I have honest conversations about expectation, what I can provide, what I can't provide, the kind of leader I am and the kind of leader I'm not, with new agents and not necessarily new to the business, whether they're new or experienced, just additions to our team. As long as I'm having those conversations and I'm feeling really good about what I am offering them and they agree that it's a good fit, I've already made that circle back around where I'm like, okay, maybe we can continue to grow as a team. But for a while there, I was like, nope, I can only coach this many people. I can only have this many people on the team. This is what I need to do. But anyway, I wouldn't have gotten all the way through that cycle of feeling really good about the team that we're building if I wouldn't have built in the wrong way, if I wouldn't have brought on agents that weren't a good fit, or that I wasn't a good fit for. I never would have learned that lesson. So I think the important thing right now for agents is to like really spend some time. I mean, I'm encouraging my agents to take some things off of their plate for the holiday season. I'm canceling meetings, and asking them like, do you want to have this meeting, or do you guys want some extra time around the holidays? And removing some things from their plate. And I hope that they can spend some time reflecting on this year and really seeing what they've learned through some of the challenges and through some of the hard parts and these temporary hurdles that we've had to go through. Because if we look back and we can actually reflect, that's when we can say that we didn't waste the struggle, that we actually grew this year, and it was actually an amazing year. I mean, I always say this was the hardest year of my life, and I'm in a position where I'm reframing that to say this was the best, most growth minded year of my life, because I I did not waste a single one of my hardships. And so if we sit down, and that's what, like, where I want to encourage people today is to like sit down and think about the wins. Obviously, we always want to focus on the wins, but I also want you to look at all of the challenges and struggles and how, if you haven't already seen them turn into wins, do that. Because I promise you, you can, if you choose, you can have every single one of those challenges be reframed into a blessing. And maybe it hasn't yet, but you're deciding now to turn it into that. And what does that look like? And that's what we want to take into the new year.
That's so beautiful. And that, if you're goal planning and you're coming up with your next 12-week year and you're doing the goals with us, this is how you start. You've got to measure all of the wins, measure all of the successes from this last year, and look at the bright side. We spent, I think, 2 minutes of this episode talking about the negative, and we filled the rest of it with positive. So you can do the same thing. You can look at your business, you can look at your year, look at your life, look at everything that's around you, and just take inventory and be so grateful because you accomplished so much this year and you moved. I mean, all of us, we're growing human beings, and we're growing and we're maturing and we're getting better, even when we sometimes don't feel like it. Like if you look at one metric and maybe it's your sales, and your sales were down this year, don't let that define you. Don't let that be the definition of 2023, because that's just part of 2023. And with that, you made investments. So if your sales were down, you invested, you shifted it another way, and you're growing. And look at it that way. Take inventory and then set those goals accordingly and move forward, and move forward with an abundant mindset, because there's so much opportunity ahead of you.
Absolutely. I mean, this year I had, I would have said earlier this year, an embarrassing amount of sales. Like it was, I mean, I would say probably it's been to date by far the lowest sales I've done. And in the past that would have really bothered me. But the amount of growth that I had time for because I wasn't selling real estate is not a coincidence. So you can choose when you have bad years or down years. Let's not call them bad. Let's call them down years in your production, because you will have them. I mean, every year is not going to necessarily be higher than the next. It's not possible. When you have those down years, you can turn them into an opportunity for growth. And that's what I did. Like I did not waste my struggles. And like I said, I did not allow the lack of sales in my business to reflect the quality of my year. And the reason for that is because I knew that it was not a coincidence that the hardest year for me personally was also the hardest year for me in business, or slowest year for me in business, because I needed it to be. So maybe you're in a season where you need to focus on in some other areas, and that is okay. And if you don't, I mean, I actually, I want to just share this story really quickly. There's this real estate agent in Madison, and she's like a super amazing, like luxury agent who I have always looked up to. I did one deal with her, and I had a buyer that bought this, like the most beautiful house I've ever sold. And she was the listing agent. And ever since I met her, I just admired her. And I was just, in the beginning, very jealous of her business, and then just learned to turn that into like admiration and whatever. And anyway, she switched brokerages a couple times, and she ended up getting this lead in Milwaukee for this Frank Lloyd Wright house. And this house was so stinking cool. And so one of my team members and we took a field trip, canceled all of our meetings, drove down to Milwaukee, supported her at her broker's open, made it a date. We had lunch, my girlfriend and I, my agent on my team, we had a lunch together. Just made it this exciting, fun day because I wanted to go and support this agent. And I had a moment where her and I had a minute to chat privately. And I said to her, like, I'm so proud of you for like all the growth you've had. And I'm just so excited for you. And she looked at me, and we're at this beautiful multi-million-dollar Frank Lloyd house in Milwaukee. And she was like, well, the success doesn't really mean anything when you don't have anybody to share it with. And I was just like, Well, that was unexpected. And I mean, don't quote me because that's not verbatim what she said, but basically she was just like, success isn't everything. Like these $1 million listings, like there was no like, thank you, like look at me. I mean, she was just like totally transparent in that moment. She's divorced and her kids are upperclassmen in high school and they're almost out. And she's like, yeah, I don't really care about all this. And I was just like so taken aback and it was just this beautiful moment. And that like, it obviously had a really big impact over me because I was like, wow, it's so true. Like, and that's the thing that I look back at this year and part of me is like, well, man, I didn't have any sales this year. Like this year was just, I'm a failure. And I could think about it that way. I could totally just choose to look at it that way. Or I could look back and sit and reflect upon the growth that I've seen as a team leader, as a friend, as a wife, as a mom, as an agent, like as a coach. Every single area in my life have grown exponentially this year because of all the hardships, all the hurdles, all the struggles, and the lack of success, if that's what you want to call it. On paper, like if somebody looks up my MLS stats, they're going to be like, wow, she's not successful, right? Like
Mhm.
they could think that, or they could hear my story and they could see me as a human and be like, wow, she did not waste the struggle. Like
Right.
that is my
Yeah.
slogan. I'm going to get that tattooed on my neck.
Yes.
Not really, but
Yeah. No regrets.
no regrets.
No regrets. That's it. That's it. And I also see too, like I can't wait for the next year. I can't wait to
Right.
see what comes next because what you have now is what you didn't have before, right? You've got a solid mind, and you take this solid mind into the next year. You take all of the things that you learned. It's everything. I mean, there's so much to get excited about,
Yeah.
and watch those stats just roll right on. And that's the low tide and the high tide, right?
Yeah.
And if you can quiet your mind and see it that way, there's going to be low tides and there's going to be high tides. And I'm excited for this high tide to come.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that when you have that attitude about a low year or a down year, the other beautiful thing that I got out of that is I don't care about the stats anymore.
Hmm.
Like in the beginning of the year, I went to an event in Madison for real estate agents. It was the Women's Council of Realtors, I think it's called.
Sounds good.
Great organization. And I went to this thing in the very beginning of the year, and they gave out these miniature bottles of champagne, and they had us all write a goal on this bottle of champagne. And then at the like, whenever you accomplished it, whether it was 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, you got to pop open that bottle of champagne and celebrate. Right? That was this whole activity. My goal that I wrote on that bottle of champagne was to double my production. Now, you can imagine from what I just shared, I did not double my production this year. I fractioned it, honestly. And it's just so interesting because less than 12 months later, that is so far from what I would write on a bottle of champagne as a goal for this in this January. It's not even funny because I could care less about the amount of houses I sell and the amount of transactions I complete and the amount, like the millions of dollars that I sell. Like those numbers don't matter to me. Now, don't get me wrong. I still like income and living a very full, wealthy, healthy life is still important to me. And I still have desires to be, to achieve and make an amount of money that allows me some freedom. But what I know now that I didn't know in January is that it has very little to do with those numbers, and those numbers really don't matter. And when those numbers don't matter, all of a sudden you start selling real estate from a different place, from from a completely different avenue. Like your thoughts and your reasons. Like, I mean, I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. There have been transactions in the past that I probably didn't serve my clients as well because I wanted the deal to close, right? Like I needed, or I felt like I needed or wanted the transaction to close. And now, like, I could care, I care way more about the person and if it's a good fit for them than I do about it closing. I mean, I almost just recently tried to talk a buyer out of a house where they were like, no, we still really want to buy it. And I'm like, well, like I'm almost going the other direction because I could care less about the closing. I could care less about the commission check. I just want to know that I am doing the absolute best for this buyer and the future investment.
And you get rid of commission breath. That's when it all goes the other way, man. I'm
Right.
telling you, right? And that's the thing too, is you release yourself of that and it changes your priorities. And it's amazing how the fruit comes anyways. But that's besides the point. Like, I just love your honesty in this because I see you, walking free from from things that used to kind of have a grip on you. Right. And then they're just silly now.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, a lot of times we have to let go. I think so much of this things that I went through this year were to force me into letting go of things that I was trying to control that, let's be honest, I didn't have control over anyways. But I had such a tight grip that it was like I could never have been successful in them because I was so focused on my white knuckles and my tight grip. And then when you let go, when you release that control, like you're saying, that's when it all comes together. Like, it all falls apart in order to come back together and to be rebuilt and to really catapult you. But it's just so good. Like, I mean, it was, don't get me wrong, I cried more this year than I've ever cried in a year in my whole entire life. And I look back and now I'll start crying tears of joy because I'm literally so grateful for everything that I went through, every trial and tribulation, every thought, everything. It's just so good.
Yes, yes. And if you're listening to this and you're going through those trials right now, if things are hard on you, keep going. Keep looking for the opportunities. Don't waste the suck. I'm going to use Mindy's line there.
Struggle.
I mean, that is the struggle. I always say the suck.
I know.
It should be.
Don't
waste the struggle.
Don't waste the struggle.
Yes. And so whatever that is for you, just keep going. Look for the opportunities. And we hope that this episode kind of brought you into the view of where the opportunities are. If you are having that kind of year where you're like, what opportunities? I haven't seen anything good this year, right? So look back on your year, find the wins, because I'm sure you had plenty of them. And with that, thank you so much for listening to the Agent Rise podcast. And like always, remember to be the reason somebody smiles today.